All right, today we're going to dive into what I think is the most underrated exercise that you're probably not doing. Let's talk about it. Hey, Brandon Smitley here from Thirst Gym, and I recently got in a nice little quarrel on social media, surprise, surprise, about whether the goblet squat was a great exercise or not. I'm going to link the actual thread from Threads, weird I know, Threads, not Twitter, X, or whatever, in the description box below in case you want to check it out. But essentially what I went on to say was that the goblet squat is the most underrated exercise because merely it doesn't have a barbell and plates, so it's seen as unsexy or not ideal to be able to improve performance in a vast array of areas. Now my argument was that this exercise can be used for any population at any point in time and for any training program of where you want to put it. And the reason I said this was that the exercise is incredibly scalable. You can modify it to almost any needs, and again, it works for any population or any kind of setting that you happen to be in. So my argument was that it could be a main movement that you're using in your training program. Now, you might be a 600-pound squatter, and so therefore a goblet squat may seem inferior to you as your main movement, and I would probably argue that it is, but it is still a main movement for older populations, younger populations, those getting into strength and conditioning or in any kind of fitness endeavor to begin with. Teaching them how to goblet squat is going to be much easier and more efficient than actually just putting a barbell on their back from day one. So that would be a main movement for that population, which it fits the bill great for. And like I said, a barbell may not do that as well. Another thing that I mentioned was that it's great for hypertrophy. You can really maximize time under tension. You can manipulate variables. You can elevate your feet, how you control the tempo, different things that you add, like you can make it a Spanish squat, for example, and have your knees being pulled forward by the band to continue to keep more time under tension on your quads, are all great variables that you can change. But at the end of the day, it's still a goblet squat, and you're still using it to drive hypertrophy in your quadriceps and in your legs. If you're a bodybuilder, it doesn't have to be, again, your main exercise to drive hypertrophy, but after you've done majority of your lower body training, do some heels elevated goblet squats with tempo and or pair them with a leg extension and watch your quads feel absolutely massive by the time you're done. Again, sequencing and programming dictate how you're going to use the exercise, but it still doesn't take away the fact that it's not a good exercise. The other thing I mentioned that I loved about this exercise was that it's great for conditioning. You don't have to have a crazy amount of equipment for it. It's loadable by almost any population, and you can use it to elevate your heart rate and pair it with other exercises, and it's still going to be safe in a long-term effective manner. And the reason I say that is if I'm doing goblet squats and a bike and a prowler push, generally speaking, I would not want to substitute my goblet squat with a barbell back squat. That would not be a good conditioning method to be able to use, and it honestly puts my client at risk of getting hurt, where a goblet squat probably not going to happen considering they're probably going to use a 30 to 50 pound dumbbell in any kind of conditioning based circuit. My other argument as well was that it's great for a general warm-up. Let's say you are that 600-pound squatter. Well, before you go get underneath the barbell, you could do 2 sets of 10 of goblet squats of just being nice, slow, controlled, focusing on range of motion, opening your hips up, owning the position, staying nice and tall, getting your legs actually working, build up a sweat. That makes it a great dynamic warm-up exercise. Again, probably not the greatest for an older person or somebody that's doing CrossFit, but again, it could just be a great exercise before you go to get under the bar if you happen to be that power lifter or strength athlete. My other argument as well was that it's fantastic for team sports. If you happen to work with a lot of athletes at one time, you usually have several dumbbells in your facility of different ages and kids that are working in your facility. So having several dumbbells is much easier to use with multiple athletes than if you're limited by 3 racks and a barbell and you have 15 kids. That's not a very efficient way to develop strength or performance, but if you've got enough dumbbells and you're building them into different circuits throughout your training facility, it's way more team sport friendly and oriented to be able to get the most out of it. I also argue that it can improve your mobility. Let's face it, not everybody is built the best to squat. You put a barbell on someone's back and they look like trash, and I understand you can coach them up and make things better. But again, by having an anterior load, that opens up our space on the backside. It allows us and gives us a place to move through our hips to squat down lower. That's why everybody's goblet squat looks better than their back squat. It's simple physics. The fact that you're putting the load up here is then going to allow for space in the backside to improve your movement capabilities. And by doing that, it makes it great for making those mobility transitions that you're trying to improve upon. So you're trying to improve your ankle mobility or your hip mobility. You should probably goblet squat than back squat. And I know that may be a hard thing to hear, but it means it's a better exercise at that given point, at that given time, for that given method that we're trying to use the exercise. So again, there's tons of ways to use this exercise. And I know people said, hey, it's not great for this, for that, or whatever. I never said at any point that it was going to be the best exercise for absolutely everything. What I'm saying is it's a great utility exercise that can be used for everything, where the back squat or machines or different squat variations that you're thinking of probably are just not going to fit the bill. And the goblet squat does that. So I want to take you over here. We're going to just kind of walk through the goblet squat here, iron out some things of what you should and shouldn't do, how to get the most from the exercise, so that way you can use it in your training programs, either with your clients or yourself. And again, you don't have to use it, but I'm just saying that's an exercise that you probably don't have an excuse why you can't use it in some method in your training program from top to bottom or somewhere in between. I do think it's a fantastic exercise. I program it every single week with several athletes and always see great success by using this exercise. So let's talk about the goblet squat. Okay, so for the goblet squat, I've got a heels ramp here, but you don't have to use this. You could certainly do this without the ramp if you'd like to. For many people that have mobility restrictions, using the ramp is going to be beneficial. But in our goblet position, we really just want to make sure that we're holding the dumbbell underneath our palms. The dumbbell is going to be slightly away from us. We just want to make sure that we're not holding it out here, but we're also not leaning backwards to support the weight through our low back. We actually want to use it to make sure that we're nice and tall. Then with the ramp, I prefer to have the whole foot on the ramp if we can fit it there, rather than just the toes. But we're just gonna keep it here for the time being, and then you're just gonna squat down as low as you comfortably can, hitting around 90 degrees. If you can go lower, that's okay. And then you're gonna stand back up. Again, the only issues I see with the goblet squat is when people are leaning back to hold the weight, or as they go down, especially if they're using a ramp, they might have their heels start to leave, and it's gonna put a lot of undue stress on the knees if we don't want to. We wanna make sure we have whole foot contact while we're there as we're going down to do the squat and then to stand back up. Again, you could do this without the ramp as well. You could do it just right here, it's completely fine. But again, how this is gonna benefit you is that obviously the general strength movement, you would do this for 6 to 10 reps, your main general strength movement. If you're doing hypertrophy, you can use different tempos. You can really just try to make sure that you're keeping good quality time under tension on your quads the whole time. If you're doing this for a warm up, I would just do this again, like I said, for 8 to 10 reps just to warm up. If I'm doing this as a mobility drill, the other thing you can do as well, even though it's not really technically a goblet squat per se in terms of reps, but you could actually go down into your goblet squat position. Knees could actually come inside your thighs here, and you could rotate back and forth, side to side here, and that can also help open up your hips. But again, this is just gonna improve our mobility as before we go to back squat. So there's lots of different ways that you can use that there. The main thing, again, whole foot contact, dumbbells in close, you're just not arching away, you're not pressing it far away, and then you're just implementing the exercise to what works best for you. Again, awesome exercise, but hopefully those coaching tips can help you use it in whichever way you're choosing to program it. All right, that's gonna wrap up our video today on the goblet squat and how it's incredibly versatile and useful regardless of what your training plan is. Again, I know a lot of people are gonna say, hey, it's not the best way to get strong. You're probably right. Hey, it's not the best way to build muscle. Yeah, you're probably right. Hey, it's not the best way to improve endurance or conditioning. And yeah, you're probably right. But my main point here with this whole exercise in terms of the topic that was discussed was the versatility of the exercise. And that just because people think that you have to use a barbell and plates to see results, it really depends upon, one, the person that you're actually working with in front of you, and two, how you're using the goblet squat as a indicator lift or a progression into a different exercise. So again, you usually don't start somebody out with just a barbell off of day one. You try to build quality movement patterns and progress them into things like that if that happens to be their goals. If not, that's totally okay. But I really wanted you to take home here today that the goblet squat is a very versatile exercise. It probably should be a majority of your training programs that you write than not. Whether you, again, how you're using that is entirely up to you, but I just think it's a fantastic exercise that often just gets overlooked just for the sheer fact that you're using a dumbbell and not a barbell. So do me a favor, if you happen to like this video, like the video, leave me a comment, let me know, did this video help you out in any way, shape, or form with your goblet squat technique or how you're gonna use it? Or, do you just disagree with me, which again, isn't totally okay. But again, after all the time that I've used this exercise, I do think it is one of the most versatile, underrated exercises that's out there that you're probably not using enough of in your training programs or for yourself. Again, let me know how you like the video, leave a comment section down below, and I'll see you at the next video.